All right, close that too.
I'm going to put this in your mouth, right? Oh.
Daphne. Kendra. 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 Could you have Jason Freeman, send a note to Jason Freeman to call Jane Plummer?
We're trying to get everybody connected.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you. This is Rexanne.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes. I am.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
This is Rexanne.
This is Amy.
This is Jim.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, he disappeared.
There you go.
This is Jim.
Yes, sir. Oh, well, I'm just saying it's Rogers. All right, can everybody hear me and see me there?
I can hear you, Ray.
Okay. I'm just gonna come out here and use Rogers. Apparently, they can't get mine to work, so we'll call the 2 o'clock meeting to order at 2:11. All right, are all council members present?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the town attorney on there?
Yes.
Okay. And the town clerk
I can
and the
hear
town
Ray.
manager is here. So, town clerk, if you'll give the invocation, we'll get started. So we'll call the 2 o'clock meeting to order at 2:11. All right. Are all council members present?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the town attorney on there? Okay. And the town clerk and the town manager is here. So, town clerk, if you'll get started. Okay, town clerk, are you gonna give the invocation?
Yes. We thank you for this time and for this beautiful day. We ask to be blessed with wisdom as we discuss our strengths and our weaknesses. Help us to work as a unified team as we listen politely to others' points of view, celebrate our diversity despite our differences, and boldly steward Fort Myers Beach towards a bright and healthy future as we
Okay,
work
town clerk, you're gonna
together
give the invocation?
on our shared mission. Amen. We thank you for this time.
Okay.
We
Delay.
ask to be blessed with wisdom as we discuss our strengths and our weaknesses. Help us to work as a unified team as we listen politely to others' points of view, celebrate our diversity despite our differences, and boldly steward Fort Myers Beach towards a bright and healthy future as we work together on our shared mission. Amen.
Okay. All right, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which
which
stands,
stands
nation,
one nation
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
justice for all. All right. Okay. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
Which stands,
which stands
nation, under God,
God, indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
All right. Hey, can everybody hear me okay now?
I can hear
Yep, I
you,
can
Ray,
hear you.
but everything keeps repeating.
Yeah. Is it still repeating now?
We're working on that. Jacob should be coming.
Okay. All right, let's give this a shot. And is there a motion to approve the final agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously.
Everything keeps repeating.
Yeah. Okay. The next item is public comment. And I'll just advise people if, for some reason or another, you don't get selected. For a motion to approve the final agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries. Okay. The next item is public comment. And I'll just advise people if, for some reason or another, you don't get selected. So with the public comment, if for one reason or another, you don't get in for your comment, you can submit your comments and they'll be duly noted as being received and possibly even answered. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next item, which is local achievements and recognitions. We'll start with Councilman Veach. So with the public comment.
I've got nothing today. I think there's so many people working so hard that I'm not going to take up all the time by trying to name everybody who deserves recognition.
And very good. Possibly even answered. How about Councilman Adderholt? With that being said, we'll move on to the next item, which is just talk over those recordings, okay? Councilman Adderholt?
He's muted.
All right, we'll move on to Councilman Allers.
I have nothing at this time, sir.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
I'm also going to pass due to our audio issues.
Yeah, and I'll do the same. All right, the next item is the restoration of Fort Myers Beach. That's really the only item we have here on the agenda. So I'll start off the conversation just by saying that there are a couple of items here. The one we can start off with is the item, the matter of food here on the island. As you may or may not know, the food vendors are starting to pull out now. World Kitchen is gone, and the Red Cross has stepped in, but the incident commanders came out with a plan this morning at the command meeting, and they're going to be issuing wristbands for residents of the island who choose to eat at the Red Cross. The Red Cross will only be serving residents of the island who are staying here. So that means all of the contractors that are here will have to have another source of food. Now, it's been brought to my attention that there are about 1,100 plus contractors on the island right now. And no one wants them leaving the island for lunch and taking an hour or 2 hour lunches. So we're trying to provide lunches for them down here, which gets us back to the discussion of the food trucks. Now, there are a couple of people that have come forward with their propositions, and one in particular, Wahoo Willie's and Snug, to opening their restaurants, and also they have a food truck. We've asked them if they'd like to put their food truck down at Santini Plaza, and they've agreed to do that pending approval from the owners of Santini Plaza, which I don't think is going to be a problem. So what I'm trying to do here this afternoon is to get the rest of the council's blessing on this, and also to encourage the other restaurateurs here on the beach to come forward now, and if the ones that are proposing to have food trucks, and the process will be expedited to get them approved and get them going. Otherwise, if no one steps forward or a shortfall is, then we'll have to open it up to outside vendors and restaurateurs off the island, which we really don't want to do. And we really want to keep it here for the people on the beach. So I'll leave it at that, and then whoever wants to comment on that, feel free to jump in now.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, on that, I've had some restaurateurs reach out about not just necessarily a food truck, but a container, if you will. I don't know what you would call them, but like a pod, but you could serve food out of. it's still something that can be moved if it needs to be moved fairly quickly. I don't know if that's something the council would want to entertain. To me, it seems to make sense. There's an issue with some of the vendors that have liquor licenses that may or may not want to extend that service as part of their food, but they're not allowed to do that out of a food truck. But
Yeah.
it sounds like they could do it out of these containers.
Well, I don't know about the rest of the council, but yeah, I'm not too concerned about whether or not they can serve liquor just yet. I don't think that's an overriding issue at the moment. Just trying to get these people fed during the daytime, not get them drunk at night. So
No, I certainly don't think that was the case. It was more of trying to make the plan, because some of these things have to be planned out. It takes 2-3 months to get in coordination. So they're just looking for direction from the council as to what we would be okay with, what we wouldn't be okay with, so they could start to plan, as opposed to just coming forward and saying, yes, we want to do it. They want to know what they can and can't do.
so that's an
So a
alternative.
question, hold on a second, Mayor, I've been trying to get this question in. So just a clarification from you, Dan, is it your belief that with a container, they would be allowed to serve liquor, but I assume it really is about what property they're on, right? So that if they're on the property where they had a liquor license, if they had a food truck or a container, it really wouldn't matter. They'd still be able to do that.
I don't know. I've been told that Florida law does not allow you to serve alcohol out of a food truck, but it could be a container with like a snow fence around it or something to quarantine off, if you will, the seating area for people to actually sit down and enjoy whatever they want to eat or drink on their own property, on the property that they were at.
Is that true, John? Is that your understanding that does that be roped off or somehow delineated?
That's something for the, excuse me, that we can look into. That's obviously controlled not by us, but by the state division of alcohol, tobacco, and beverages. Whatever their alphabet soup is, we can check. I certainly don't know if Jason Green has anything to add to that. I would take the opportunity to tell you that as it relates to what I would call traditional food trucks, the ones that come in and the ones that I think is the immediate need, whether they're the ones that sell out of the truck, for construction workers, or a branded one. Those are preempted by the state as long as they meet the state requirements and the state licensing. We have, they're certainly able to come into the town and to sell. But I think we're making a distinction here between traditional food truck, which is the immediate need and is regulated by the state, versus, and I know this is an oxymoron, temporary permanent, locations where someone wants to put a pod or some other type of a mobile kitchen, which do exist. Obviously, the Red Cross and other entities are providing those at their location where they previously existed for sales and consumption by workers as well as people on the island.
So now, John, but I mean, I understand that maybe the food truck thing's been preempted, so we can't limit food trucks, but where the food trucks are allowed to set up would be, I mean, if it's private property, they'd have to agree. If it's public property, we'd have to agree. So they're not allowed to just go and, set up a food truck on.
No. I mean, obviously the idea is that the individual food trucks are coordinating with individual property owners. If this food truck is setting up on private property, you are correct. They would need the permission of the property owner. But that would be between the food truck and the property owner. As it relates to the parking on temporarily parking on the right of way, again, it's preempted by the state. Obviously, to the extent that they are obstructing, the cleanup crews or something of that nature, we would obviously have the ability to tell the food truck to move from the location that they're at in the right of way. But otherwise, stopping intermittently in different locations throughout the town is something that is allowed under the state preemption statute.
And John, maybe to make it simplified, can we, instead of just using the word food truck, if we can just say a mobile servicing, I don't know if it's a center or something that's mobile, or something that could be easily removed, and then let the state and alcohol people, they obviously have to follow those rules, despite what we, just trying to give them some guidance as to what we will allow and not allow.
Again, the state preemption is very specific to what is defined in the statute as mobile food dispensing vehicle, which implies or actually specifically states as any vehicle. So it has to be a vehicle that is a public food service establishment and that is self-propelled or otherwise movable from place to place and includes self-contained utilities, including but not limited to gas, water, electricity, or liquid waste disposal. So I think that the intent there is that if it is a vehicle that is self-propelled or otherwise movable, I guess theoretically that could constitute a trailer that's being hitched to a truck or some other type of vehicle that would be preempted, and they can pretty much go anywhere in the town, subject to getting approval from the private property owner if they're just setting up on a private property. But the issue of the property owner or a business owner putting in again, I'm going to say it's an oxymoron. It's intuitively wrong to say it this way, but a temporary permanent kitchen while they rebuild, that would be then each individual property owner, and we would issue a temporary use permit for tracking purposes for those types of uses.
So with your interpretation then, John, would that be if someone did have a container like Councilman Alder said, that would not be something that anybody could put down, but someone could put down a container on some land where they have an agreement with somebody, that's something we could allow, because it's obviously not going anywhere. Although, my house was pretty much mobile a month ago. But aside from that.
Yes, I think that's the distinction that is implied or outright stated in the state statute, is that it is self-propelled or otherwise movable. If it's something that's intended to be, again, permanent, closed up at night and not moved off site, then that would be a temporary use.
So I think you just hit the nail on the head there, John. If it's movable, I mean, as long as you can move it, then we can allow it, correct?
Well, self-propelled.
Yeah, I mean, the definition is self-propelled or otherwise movable from place to place. If the intent is, again, a particular business owner, previous restaurant that existed in location A, and they want to put in for all intents and purposes, a permanent temporary kitchen and set up some outdoor seating and tables and umbrellas for people to eat at that location while they rebuild, that would then be treated as a temporary use.
Can you get that in some sort of ordinance or resolution that we can officially vote on?
Yes, we're already working on the form for people to come in and fill out the paperwork so we can keep track of them.
That's done. That form is ready. That form is ready.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be tweaked, Mayor, in the sense that the form actually refers to food trucks, which, as I said before, is preempted. So we just would ignore that one.
Well, the structure is there for your review, and
yes, it is.
You can scribble it up as you see fit.
Yes, sir. But it's ready to go.
And where can the restaurant owners or the landowners find this form, and where do they submit it?
I defer to staff.
Hold on a second.
Okay, so the form is was drafted out. Let's give it to John for review. And as soon as we have John's comments, we can post it on our website, and it'll be downloadable, and people will be able to fill out and send it back to us. So hopefully before the end of the week.
Sooner.
So,
Great.
maybe tomorrow. So we're good with that? Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Not in regards to the food truck, but I have a couple other items if,
Well, no, we're gonna move on to other items here. I just want to make sure everybody's good with that so far. Okay, in regards to that, I don't know if, we had talked about kiosks at one time and tents at one time, but we're gonna stick with the truck, then the food truck, I guess. So that'll be, all right, that'll be that. All right, what,
Well, just before you move on from that, Mayor, that's kind of interesting because, I'm sure, and I know that tents are kind of a pain for people because they have to, set them up and tear them down every day. But I also think for some restaurants, probably a food truck may be cost prohibitive. So I don't know if we want to word this anyway, particularly like if you're like, I'm guessing Santini Plaza would give preference to their restaurants who have been paying them rent. And if there's a way to get them up faster than them investing in a food truck, I'd like to investigate that.
like putting grills out front, that sort of thing, and
Like, for example, Sky's restaurant, when they had farmers markets, I've been down there and they set up at a tent. Now they had a restaurant,
to feed it.
100 feet away, but lots of people do that. Like with our, when we do the Taste of the Beach, a lot of restaurants are pretty much already have the equipment to do that. And if that's the way they can be up quicker, then I'd like to keep that option open for them.
Well, why don't we do that, and we'll wait for the entrepreneurial spirit to kick in and see if the restaurateurs get back to us in the next several days, and we'll listen to their suggestions. If that's all right.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just one additional point. You had mentioned other types of businesses, and I think we all agreed last time to, if a business is so motivated to allow them to fill the void, for example, a hardware store on the beach, if they want to set up a tent with sundry tools, etc., and other supplies. We don't have a CVS, we don't have a Publix. So if another store or business wanted to put up some kind of a kiosk or tent, I think we all sort of agreed that would be a possibility we would consider. Is that fair?
Yeah, sure. I think so. If again, giving first preference, I think we can all agree on like the restaurateurs. Give them the first crack at it, and if they want to go forth with something sort of kiosk and that sort of thing, I don't have any problem with that.
I was thinking of other commercial businesses on Fort Myers Beach, that maybe a hardware store, other retail store that might want to set up a tent or a kiosk to sell various retail products that might be of need on the island right now, and kind of fill that void and also fill their void a little bit. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think too, Jim, that, there's a lot of businesses that will take a lot of overhead, like if you're a clothing store that are geared towards tourists, but then there's also things like hairdressers who can provide a service that wouldn't need a lot of overhead. I agree.
Particularly if they're working on me, they wouldn't need much overhead. But all right. All right, we'll let that one go for now. That sounds good. Sounds like we have some good ideas and good things to move forward on with that. Next, I don't know what we want to hit next. Town hall. Huh? Okay, Rexanne, we'll go around. Anything to bring up? We'll start with the vice mayor. Rexanne, do you have anything you want to bring up?
No.
Okay. We'll go next to Councilman Allers.
yeah, I'd like to touch on a few things if I may. The first one would be permits. That's been a lot of questions out there as to how we can get permits out. I did speak with Roger about this briefly. I don't know if he's had a chance to kind of vet some of the things we discussed, but I would like to follow suit with what the Fire Commission did and make a motion to suspend permit fees for a time of 6 months to allow people to get started as fast as possible, working within the current codes and guidelines that we have in place to start the rebuild.
You know, I got to tell you, and I appreciate the thought, but I think it's a fairly, and I understand where you're coming from. I think it's a fairly empty gesture because, you know, the permit fees are not a profit item. They're made to pay for the people who are doing the permits. I would much rather see us, if we're doing a lot of permits, to put more people on to expedite the permits instead of just put a hole in our budget. And because in the end, if you're waive permit fees, it's the taxpayers who are paying for that. So all you're doing is taking money from one person and moving it to another. And I appreciate the sentiment, but I think that you know, it would be better off to keep the money and beef up the permitting office so we can expedite those permits.
Well, I think that there's a way to, not to use the word beef up, but streamline the permitting process. As someone that's pulled a lot of permits in my lifetime, I can tell you that it's very cumbersome the way we're doing it now. And we certainly need to figure out a better, faster way to get it done, to get the permits out. We have very experienced contractors that work within the town all the time, and they're ready to get going. And if there's people out there that are ready to get going and are able to rebuild within the codes that we have in place now, and they're certainly wanting to do it, us holding them up should not be the reason we're not starting to see some construction being done.
Are you hearing reports of people being held up already by permits?
They're not getting responses. They're not getting emails back. They're not getting calls back. You know, as I said to Roger, you know, there was a time when it was getting better, and then it seems to have, even before even, kind of go the other direction. So what used to be getting complaints went to compliments, and now we're back to complaints again. So I'm not exactly sure how we got here, but you know, dealing with what we dealt with over the last 30-some days, there are people that are ready to get back to building. There are people that have the means to be able to do it. They are willing to work within the codes that we currently have in place. You know, holding them up shouldn't be something that the town is not purposely doing. But if there's a way that we can make it easier for them to get this permit quickly and get started, I could tell you from a contractor's perspective, they have very short attention spans when it comes to jobs, especially when there's a plethora of them out there right now. If they're being held up because they can't get a permit and they can't get started, they're going to move on to the next one that's ready to go. So that's the last thing I think we want to do as a town is lose what contractors are willing to work within our island and get them started.
So let me, a question for you, John. You mentioned to me some time ago that that you had some guys, I think they're working on building inspections, and that you were looking at engaging some of those people to help with a load of permits. Have you made any moves towards getting contractors in the permitting department to help with any kind of backlog?
Yes. Well, yes,
No,
to
that's
John.
Roger.
I think that question is better directed to Roger.
Roger, yes, Roger.
Definitely Roger.
Okay, so the answer is, we brought in additional resources. We're asking other governments to loan us personnel. And based on the last information that I have available, we have 3 permits in the queue.
All emails are answered, only 3 emails have not been answered.
Yeah, 3 emails. We have 3 emails pending in the queue. So, you know, I think we're current with it right now. Now, I did talk to Councilman Allers about looking at our process to see if we could streamline it. And we've had a couple of meetings about seeing what we can include as a permit condition rather than a review. And we're in the process of looking at those and formulating some changes that we think can deal with the most common cases. And we'll put that into practice as soon as we can.
What else, Dan?
No, that's it. I believe I got a motion on the floor. I just don't know if there's a second or not.
Dan?
That's kind of where.
Dan, just a point of clarification. Are you suggesting that we mirror what the Fort Myers Beach Fire District is doing? Is that what you said? Because you said 6 months, and I thought they were doing a 90-day suspension of fees. Am I misunderstanding that?
Well, if I misspoke, yes, I would like to mirror what the fire department did. I thought it was 6 months. If I was mistaken, then whatever, I thought they had, but it's been about a month since they did it.
I believe it's a 90-day extension. If that's your motion, I would second it.
Yeah, if that's what they did, then yes, that's what I would like to do.
I just think we need to be in sync with, as you said, with the Fort Myers Beach Fire Department as well, and then we can review it at that point.
You know, and again, I think it's fairly empty because the people who are paying these fees are also the ones who pay taxes. There's a lot of financial uncertainties of the town. I don't know if it's a really good idea to be making this move now. I'll also say that I think the whole 60-day thing, I know that, you know, it depends on where you are. If you are fortunate enough to be able to fix your house up under the 50% rule, then maybe you can do something within 60 days. But for a lot of people who are not that fortunate, it's going to be more than 60 days before these permits are filed. So it's also a little selective to people who are honestly fortunate compared to others.
Well, I mean, you know, our residents have gone through a lot of financial hardship. This storm was definitely not there was no economic diversity. It didn't matter if you had no money or if you were completely wealthy. So, you know, I think it would be a small motion to give some of these people a little bit of a reprieve, even if it's you know, only a 90-day thing. At least it will help alleviate a little bit of stress for these people. And it's not it shouldn't be a huge, if they're talking, there's only 3 in the queue that haven't been answered. I don't know that it would be, and maybe Roger can opine on that a little better, but a huge financial thing for the town. But it would promote hope. It would promote getting people back to work. It would promote, you know, people seeing that we are building back. We are moving swiftly. We mean what we say, and we're following through with it.
See, Dan, waiving the fees does really nothing to expedite the permitting process. In fact, I would say it's the opposite, because then it becomes the budget is more constrained. So if you're looking to expedite permitting, I think that keeping the fee structure as it is, so that our staff can be brought up to be proportional to the load, because there's going to be thousands and thousands of these permits coming through, thousands of them. Maybe not all in the first 90 days, but almost everybody is touched by this and will need a permit.
Any other discussion? Okay, go ahead, Dan.
No, I mean, I think we'll just agree to disagree on this, and we both made our points, and I'd like to hear from the rest of the council, since we got a motion in a second, and see where we lie.
Is there any other further discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. Okay. Who's next? Bill, do you have any item?
I got a couple more, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Oh, I thought you said you were done. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. And I'll try to make them as quick as possible.
That's all right.
I've been hearing from, you know, residents, as I'm sure all of us have, about, you know, the curfew, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And there's been some will to want to be able to, when they're done working for the day, to be able to leave the island to get, you know, a hot meal and maybe forget about the tragedy for a few hours, if nothing less. But they don't want to do it because they can't get back on the island. I would like to make a motion to implement our hurricane passes to residents only that want to leave the island to go get something to eat and come back on. That with that permit pass, they're allowed to do that past the 7 p.m. curfew, but residents only, not contractors, not visitors, residents only. We have the passes in place. I think that could be a good use for that.
I'll second that.
So the idea, though, wouldn't just be for residents that are currently living on the island. It would be any resident with a pass.
If you have the purple pass, then you should be able to leave the island and go get some dinner, get some normalcy. Because if anybody, you know, when you do get off the island and you go 5 miles off the island, it's like nothing ever happened. So it does recharge your batteries a little bit if you want to choose to do that. Not everybody will do that. But if those that want to, that are residents on the island and have that pass, I think that's a freedom that they should be allowed.
Okay,
I have a question.
Okay,
Dan?
go ahead, Rick. Go ahead, Rick.
Dan, Have you verified with the sheriff's department that they would be willing to enforce this?
I have not,
There's
but
nothing wrong
if
with
we can give them direction, they seem to be amenable to whatever we ask them to do. And I have not talked to them about it, but I certainly would.
I
it's a-
haven't heard that they were amenable to other requests that we've made.
Well, every single request we've asked them to do, close the island, open the island, close the island, open the island, they've adjusted and they've mobilized very quickly to make it
Right,
happen.
but they weren't willing to partially open the island and check people coming on, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, it's
So
not
this
there in
would
my
be,
opinion.
this would be, they would have to allocate people toward this, not just have someone there stopping people.
Well, I
So they
think,
would,
I can appreciate that, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, but, we've got this plan in place and to use it at this point makes sense. And to see a color hanging from a rear view mirror is fairly easy. And I don't know that we're going to have a ton of people going off and on the island, but,
well, I guess my request would be that you amend your motion to include that this plan would be used if the sheriff agrees that they are willing to enforce it.
And I would also, just for clarification, because what you said and what the passes do are not necessarily the same, Dan. You're saying to allow people who are living on the island to go off the island in the evening, but the passes are available to everybody, even if they're not living on the island, like all of us counselors. So it means it would allow anybody with a pass to go onto the island in the evening, as well as allow people to get off.
Unless I'm mistaken, you can't get a pass unless you are an island resident.
Right, but we're not living on the island. You said, you couched this as saying this is for people who are living on the island to get off and have a sense of normalcy. But there's a lot more people with these passes who are not currently living on the island, like all of us.
I guess I'm struggling. So you think that there's going to be a plethora of people that just decide to come on after 7 o'clock because they can?
It's just going to be more open. I think that, everything is moving really quickly. I mean, the last week or so, I haven't seen much traffic. You see a lot of things are being done. The trash guys with the numbers they have are moving. I think it's probably just a matter of time before we want to drop the curfew altogether. The people have had enough time to secure their properties and that there's enough people living on the island where it's not a vacant island. So I'm not saying I object to it, Dan. I just want to be clear that this is going to allow more people than your intended target to come on and off the island at night.
Go ahead.
If I could, just a clarification on that, Bill. I mean, it's a fair point, Bill, but I think the town was pretty diligent on requiring identification to certify that you are a resident of Fort Myers Beach, and you had to make a real effort to get those reentry passes. And so I think those who have them legitimately, and I think it would really do a service to those folks to be able to get on and off the island who belong on the island and who have a purpose on the island. So your point's well taken, but I don't think it would cause additional problems to have somebody off the island who needs to get on the island for whatever reason, who's a resident. I don't see that as a hurdle. I mean, something certainly worth considering, but I support the motion.
And
My only concern is, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm really looking for a clarification because I heard what he's saying and I know what would happen, and I just want to make sure they're on the same page. That be anybody who has a residency on the island.
My only concern, frankly, is that there'll be more cars on the road going up and down, and we may or may not know who they are. Unless they leave those purple hangers in their windshield there. So I'm concerned about the law enforcement on the beach itself, not so much at the foot of the bridges, but on the island. But I'd be willing to give it a shot because we were actually talking about this morning about with the time change coming up and so forth that we might have to readjust the curfew anyhow. But and that's another discussion we might want to have. But But let's dispense with this motion here. I'll call the question if there's no more discussion. All those in
Just for
favor?
the, Mr. Mayor, just for the good of the order, if Dan would, and you would second it, amend the motion to make sure that the re-entry pass is placed on the rearview mirror in easy view for the sheriff and his deputies to view. I think that's just make that part of the motion. I think that would help everyone involved.
I also didn't hear any amendment that I requested to the motion.
Was to get buy-in from the sheriff?
Yes,
Contingent upon the sheriff's approval.
yes.
I will amend my motion to include that Councilman Adderhall just added to make sure that the pass is hanging from the rearview mirror. If you have been issued the pass, that it's on the rearview mirror. This is subject to Lee County Sheriff's approval.
Thank you, Dan.
And Jim, do you need to amend your second?
I think the mayor seconded it, but I'll second.
Okay, sorry.
I did second it, but what would the hours be for that?
Well, it wouldn't change the curfew. It would simply just change that if you are out past the curfew, that you are a resident, whether you're just running down to use a shower or you're, running to grab something to eat and you're coming back on, that you have to have that pass displayed on your rear view mirror for the Lee County Sheriff's working on the island to be able to identify who you are.
So the curfew would remain 7 to 7 right now until further notice?
Or yes.
Okay, everybody all right with all that? All right, then I'll call the question as the motion as amended 2 or 3 times. It's been moved and seconded. It's been discussed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Nay? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, what else, Dan?
Just 2 more quick things. The people that are working on the building that Madam Vice Mayor had talked about a while back down by the 7-Eleven on the south end, the 6200 block area, reached out to me yesterday about potentially using that site as the town hall for the next 18 to 24 months. I spoke to Roger about it earlier.
The one that I brought up at the last meeting?
Yeah, same. I believe it's all the same building. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
They said that the top 2 floors are ready for office space and could house our staff. The first floor has been mediated and ready to be built out kind of however we would need it should we choose to want to work with them. And they said about 30 to 60 days they could have it up and running. So I passed the information along to Roger. I just wanted to give everyone the heads up. If they're okay to do that, we could direct Roger to enter into talks with them and bring back what he finds.
I guess my question would be, the last I heard that we were reaching out to the library and I haven't heard an update about that.
Sure, this is just another option. This is just another option to pursue.
Roger, you want to comment on the library?
Okay, with respect to the library, we went there with 2 of their employees. We walked the facility. When I say we, it's myself and the town clerk. And to my knowledge, they haven't gotten back to us with anything concrete. The only space they would have available to us would be the 3rd floor. There would be no elevator. So it couldn't be fully utilized as a public meeting due to ADA concerns, but it could be a place for staff to work out of. But within their overall repair plan, I don't know if A, that's a priority, and B,
look into this other building.
Now, is the elevator in the other building working?
I did not ask that. I did not ask that specific question, but they did say that they will make any changes or anything we need them to do to make it work for us. Just gotta negotiate that out.
Yeah, DeAngelis and Diamond is rehabbing the whole building for the owners, so they'll have it up to snuff in no time. So that's an option. There are other options, though. We'll
I'd say I'll just why he's frozen. I like the idea of the Bay Oaks building. I don't know. How that work with business, it may be more economically suited since you already have the building. How long do you think it's going to be before that area is safe for the general public with the mountain of debris that's there now?
Well, that's a good question. That's another question to have answered, but I'm sure I'm sure they could work something out for us, on that north end of the property. Yeah. Oh, hold on 1 second. I'll get Roger in here. Hold on.
Okay, so I've talked to one company, and what they would basically do is make the debris area smaller, cordon it off, and create a pathway to the Bay Oaks building segregated from the debris. We have to repair the Bay Oaks building at some point on the time spectrum anyway. So it just becomes a question of prioritizing it for repair for this purpose versus prioritizing it for repair as a recreational facility.
Okay. So there are options. So there's a couple of good choices to further explore here. So hopefully we'll know something within the next, possibly by the time we meet next time. So anyhow, so we'll let that, unless there's anything else to add to that, we'll move on to the next item. Are you all done, Dan? You got another one, Dan?
Yeah, sorry. Two
all right.
more. Two more.
You said that last time, 2 more.
I know. I thought of another one. Sorry.
That's all right.
Today, I just wanted, this is more of an update to the council and to anybody that's listening about the 50/50 and, the building value and those kind of things. And I think it's been out there that, our code is the 50, the building value plus the 20%. At the county commissioner meeting today, they discussed and advised to send that to the LPA, who are going to be meeting on Monday, as to the building value plus whatever percentage they recommend. So there was talk amongst the commissioners today of anywhere between 5 and 30% above that building value. And then they called a special meeting on Tuesday to make a final decision on what percentage above that building, if any percentage above that building value, would be implemented. So I thought it was a very important piece of information that we need to get out there to keep an eye on. Should it go even better, maybe that's something we need to look at to stay in line. Matt Caldwell was there also and spoke to basically how important it is, with the FEMA regulations to kind of stay in line and because at the end of the day, we all pay the taxes to whatever the new flood rates are going to be. So I just wanted to get that information out there to anybody that maybe didn't know that that's what the discussion was. And we should have a final answer as to what their final plan is going to be on Tuesday of next week.
That's so. What you're just to clarify, and I gotta tell you, Dan, these are really good ideas. And as your list is getting longer, mine's getting shorter. So you're saying that they are instead of the 20% over the value, they're throwing out numbers from up to 30%.
Well, what they're doing, I think, if I heard correctly, that Fort Myers was doing 30%. They obviously know that we were doing 20%. Then I think it was Commissioner Greenwell started out, obviously they want to do as much as you can. And we're not going to be able to help everyone through this, but every little bit helps. And I believe he started at 5%. And then as the discussions went on, it was anywhere between that and 30%. I certainly don't want to speak for them, but they're going to send it back for discussion at their LPA level and bring it back on Tuesday to vote on it. So we'll know exactly where it stands. I just think it's something that we should pay close attention to and see where it goes.
The only, and I appreciate I've certainly done remodeling with the 50% rule, and I understand its intent and its awkwardness. But I think it's important we don't even collectively as Lee County, that we don't, after a big disaster like this, when FEMA is paying, millions and millions of dollars for cleanup, that we don't, push them too far.
It won't be
Right.
called the 50% rule for much longer if they keep doing that.
Well, even Dan's calling it the 50-50 rule.
Anyhow, okay. All right, we'll
Um,
move on.
Yeah, that, and then the very last thing I had that was brought up, and I did talk to Roger about this already. If he can opine on it for anybody listening, that got some people that in the condos that have reached out about they've received their structural and their electrical sign-offs for the building, but they're now being informed that they have to have one for each individual unit within the condos. Roger, I gave him he was going to check on it for a few days. I just wondered if he had any update on if that is in case us sending that out, or if it's the fire department, or if it's just not true.
Well, I can tell you what I was able to find out. I wasn't actually be able to find out where that was originating from, but what I was able to find out is that for the iandebriscleanup.com website, whoever is listed on the property appraiser's record as the owner of the property, that's who they'll take authorizations from. Okay. That's that in terms of that. Now, I believe in some cases, FP&L may want to know some information like the individual units, but I can tell you that from the cleanup point of view, I confirmed with Kevin Guthrie that whoever the property appraiser lists on their website, whoever represents that entity is the person they'll take authorizations from.
And that certainly makes sense, but I think this was more about receiving power to each individual unit is where the miscommunication seems to be happening. So if we could get some clarification as to if the building.
That's FP&L. I think that's FP&L, and I think that may be. I don't know if that's a case where there's individual units who have meters or what is driving that decision, but we can try to get FPL to come give you a report at your next meeting about that.
Yeah, if we can get some direct, clear communication or clarification for these condo owners, if we can get it to the association presidents or the associations in general to disseminate that information out to their residents so that they're clear on what the policy is, that whether it's FPL or us, or just so that they
I can tell you it's
start
not us, so let's be clear. So let's be
Okay.
clear about that, so we don't start any misinformation. We're 90% sure it's FP&L, and we'll ask them to come to your meeting next week and brief you on what it is and why it is they need that information.
All right, thank you for the clarification. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
And just along a similar vein about the right of entry, Roger, so if there's some private streets, and I get a lot of communication that they're not getting debris removal, now is there like an HOA that needs to enter into the right of entry agreement to allow them to apply for the debris removal from FEMA?
Hold on 1 second.
Hang on, we're getting a charger here.
Hold on, we got to charge up here. Okay,
Sorry, Bill. say
pose that
again.
question again, Bill.
Yeah, just well, it's along the same kind of vein as what Councilman Adderhout was saying, or sorry, Alders was saying, is that I know there's some private roads where they're complaining about not getting debris cleanup. I know they need to sign some kind of right of entry, both to get the trucks there, or if it's considered private property to apply for FEMA to go in there. Now, is that just the HOA, or is that every individual property owner within that street has to agree?
What they're saying, whoever is a property owner listed, if it's 6 individual owners who own a equal share, John can maybe help explain this better than me, but then it would be all six. If it's the Brentwood Homeowners Association, whoever that person is, whether by a power attorney or the board president, whoever represents that group would be the person. So it's not gonna be one set answer for every situation. Okay?
Okay, Jim Adderholt, what do you have on your plate? Anything?
No formal motions, Mr. Mayor, but if I could just have the town manager's attention, I got some rapid fire questions from various constituents. These are all questions that have been asked more than once. And so we'll just kind of go through these quickly if we could. Roger, is the town towing cars? And if they are, where are they taken?
Town is not towing cars. I believe the cars that were parked on the right of way were taken by the Lee County Sheriff's Office, and people can contact them for information where to pick those up.
Thank you. The next question is, can and do United Parcel Service, FedEx, and Amazon, are they delivering to the island right now? Does anybody know?
No, but we can check.
Thank you.
Haven't seen any of their trucks down
with
there.
I have seen trucks.
Okay.
I've heard a mixture of rumors about that. Just curious if there was any formal information on that.
I've actually seen them.
Okay, great. Thank you. With respect to energizing homes, what's our rough count on our number right now? Roger, do you have a sense?
I think you have to, 650 homes energized, according to Daphne Saunders. We have roughly 3,500 structures, and we lose about half of that between the ones that are not livable and severely damaged, and so we can compare that way.
Just more informational than anything else. I know we're doing a great job on the town's done a great job on the water piece. Could you just take a second and explain how quickly the wastewater follows the water progress? Sounds like we've made some progress on the wastewater front. You would just give us a brief update on that?
Yes, my understanding from Lee County Utilities is that they have their system up and running. In some cases with running. That's was as of yesterday.
Could you say it one more time, Roger? You kind of cut out there a second.
According to Lee County Utilities, who runs the wastewater system, as of yesterday, they report their system is up and running. They have put in some interim measures to keep it up and running, but they have it up and running.
What does that mean from a practical standpoint? If you have water, is wastewater a week behind, a few days behind? Just from a practical sense, could you give?
Right now, it's not behind at all. They have some parts and things that they've done some workarounds to keep running, but it's running 100%.
That's great. That's excellent news on that front. Is there a rough estimate on how long folks will have to boil the potable water, or is that still unknown?
It's unknown at this point. Now that we've just completed having water availability to all the houses, we'll begin the rigorous testing requirements to see where and if we can reduce the 100% boil water donors down to certain areas or not. But that'll be happening over the next week to 10 days.
Jim,
Thank
before
you.
you move on,
Yep.
move on from that, can I just ask a follow-up question on that to Roger?
Please.
Some people have messaged me today that they had water and now the water has been turned off to their street. Are we doing some maintenance on some of the streets? That's why their water is off now?
I'm not aware of any streets that have water off unless there's no houses that can receive water on their streets. I did get one complaint about low pressure, and we're checking on Widgeon Terrace that we're checking into, but I haven't heard of any of the.
Yeah, I had two constituents message me today and said they had water, but now the water is turned off at their house and they're just not sure why. They had it for a couple of days and now it's off.
I don't
I'll
know.
follow up with you. I'll follow up with you offline on it.
We'll find out.
Okay, thanks.
Roger, you touched on this briefly, but you want to just give us a brief overview on how the stormwater system held up through the storm and where we are going forward on that?
Okay, can I just go back to Council's Ali's questions? You know, if we do have a break, there will be disruptions in service on the water line. So, you know, in some cases, we have turned on the water system and it hasn't had a break, but as people begin to use it, cracks become breaks. So there'll be some disruptions as the sort of the dust settles. So let's back to Council question. Sorry, can you say it again?
Just you touched on it briefly, Roger. Just give an update on how the storm water system fared after the storm and where we are in terms of being operational.
Well, we suspect it's Sandy. So we have a contract that's out for bid right now to basically televise and clean out the entire system, as well as to restore all our swales and ditches. And once we have that contract in, we will run it past the state FEMA, make sure they're comfortable with it, say they believe it to be eligible, and then we'll start that work.
Thank you. There was some discussion, you touched on it this afternoon about additional staff coming in for permitting. There was some discussion of setting up a kiosk where citizens could actually come in person and talk to a person about their permitting questions. Is there progress on that front that we could talk about?
Yeah, we're looking at getting our third community service area set up at Times Square, and then having a person be available at each of those locations at certain dates, certain
My
times.
microphone is on.
But
That would be great.
that off yet.
That would be great. Could you also, at the 10,000 foot level, just one more time reiterate sort of the division of labor / responsibilities for the debris removal? Just go through what the state does, what the county does, and what the town does, just at a very 10,000 foot level.
Okay, so the state and Lee County are managing the debris process for the town. So that includes the right-of-way debris that was pushed aside after the hurricane. That includes the debris that homeowners bring out from their property to the right-of-way. That includes the Ian Debris Cleanup.com site for property owners wishing to allow the contractor to come on to their property, remove property. That includes commercial properties. That includes vessels and vehicles and other entitled trailers that are not on the public right of way. And that includes debris in public waters. And that includes debris on public portions of the beach. So basically all.
So just for informational purposes, is the county managing the operation and the state assuming the financial risk? How do they split that responsibility?
We're not a party to that agreement, so I can't answer that specifically. I could send you and other members of the council a copy of the agreement between the state and the county.
I was just curious. I've had a number of people ask me about that. That'd be helpful.
Just before you move on there, Jim, so you mentioned the public part of the beach and the waterways. That's all handled under the same contract?
Well, not necessarily the exact same contract, but the state will probably be bidding that work out or arranging for that work to be done. But not necessarily all under one contract, or they may have multiple contracts.
Because I know one of the items on my list, and just since it's kind of related to what Councilman Adderholt's saying, is beach cleanup. Because I've been on the entire length of the beach, and there's dumpsters, there's sofas, there's lots of heavy equipment that we need some help getting off. And the longer it's there, the more it sinks and the more it breaks up. But there's also some concerns about water quality and not wanting to have people work in an environment that could be harmful to them.
Well, I think the state emergency management realizes time is of the essence for the exact reasons that you mentioned, Council Beach, but also because the federal government pays for 100% of that for a limited amount of time. So I think they're very motivated to get this work done as quickly as possible.
Two last questions, and they're interrelated, Roger. Would you just kind of give a thumbnail sketch of how you view the town's fiscal situation, both short-term and long-term, and then also discuss the insurance dynamic for the town, the insurance that it had on the town hall, and other structures and infrastructure, and how that will help offset some of the fiscal challenges that we might face, both short-term and long-term. If you just spend a minute on that and let us know what you're thinking in terms of short and long-term challenges and quite frankly, opportunities, if there are any.
Okay, well, last time I checked with our financial team, town has roughly $16.5 million in cash. That does include the ARPA money, but does not include the $8 million loan. There's frankly a call, I believe, going on this afternoon with freeing up that $8 million loan, potentially used instead of towards the Bay Oak new building, to use it towards a town hall if we wish to use it for that. I understand there's a $3 million insurance payment that's in transit to the town. We have asked FEMA for a 50% advance on our Category B work, which is $8 million. So that's about $35 million in total that we have in hand to address the town's cost with the recovering from the hurricane, and of course our day-to-day operations.
So as someone who oversees the fiscal status of the town, are you sleeping well at night, at least short term, or where are your biggest concerns?
Well, I was sleeping a lot better, 40 days ago, but I think the situation with FEMA in particular is that it's not the initial sort of getting the project built or the restoration completed issue. It's really more of the clawback that FEMA potentially does at the end of projects when they inspect the projects. They're very particular, and you have to have every I and every T dotted. We've had, I would say, since a week into the storm, we've had a consultant on board helping us who does nothing but this stuff, to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it, and make sure we're in the best position to make sure that there's no clawback in the future by FEMA. But as we get involved with more and more activities, obviously, we have to be extremely careful. So the other thing is that in terms of rebuilding and replenishing or restoring structures, we'll have our insurance proceeds for whatever they are for that particular building. In many cases, that will not cover the restoration. We will go to FEMA for additional funds to do that. They may knock down their funding by 20% if they feel it's what they call an improved project, which means you're not building back exactly what you had. And then we will try to go after hardening funds to backfill that amount of money. So if we're successful on all three fronts, we should be able to build back at zero or near zero out-of-pocket expense.
That's very helpful. I have no further questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Jim. Thank you. Bill Veach.
Well, you guys have done a good job of clearing my list, but it's not completely cleared. So, Roger, I got a question for you, and that is, I think you mentioned this to me, but it's more for illustration. If people want to demolish their house, do they need a permit?
Yes, there's a very, I would say, simplified form that they can apply for, and that's turned around right away.
Now, how much of your house has to be left before you don't need a demolition permit?
Well, how much is left? I don't know if there's a specific answer to that, but clearly, if they need guidance with that, they could send a picture of their house with the permit application, and if we don't think they need a permit, we'll tell them that.
So, because you mentioned to me that it wasn't really, that the real reason for the demolition permit was from the homeowner side, that if they go into insurance or some other things, they may need that demolition permit.
Well, it's for that. And the other thing is that if they're demolishing their house themselves, theoretically, they're not adding to our debris pile. They're putting it in a dumpster. If they're putting it in a debris pile, we need to know that, or at least if they're planning to do that.
Is that because it will not be included in the FEMA paid collections?
Well, what happens is if you let's say you want to demolish your house and you want to put it in our debris pile, then we need to know that you've registered at FEMA debriscleanup.com.
Okay. The other thing is I noticed that there's a lot of concrete left in the debris piles, that people who have, torn out foundations or this kind of thing, that I'm kind of gathering that those trucks that we see all the time are hesitant to pick up concrete because they just cannot get a complete load that they need to get paid.
Well, they get paid by volume, so I think we can talk to them and perhaps ask Brandon to come to a council meeting and talk to you specifically about concrete. But I suspect that because of volume, they would be interested in getting that material if they can.
All right. The next question I have is now, people who have flood insurance, if they signed on for a rider with the policy, it's called the increased cost of compliance, or the ICC. That can provide up to $30,000 for the cost of lifting your house or other flood proofing. Now, I sent something to you, Roger, that there may be, this is suggested by a constituent, that there's a process where people could assign that money back to the town with the hopes of getting that augmented by grants. Now, I know, Roger, you probably have time to look into this in any kind of depth. My feeling is, though, that will probably take some time because most of those grants are not meant to repair a facility. They're more, and I know there's people like this who have got some flood damage and they can fix their house with a 50% rule, they think, but then they would like to lift it just for peace of mind. So in that kind of situation, they may be able to lift the house later on with this grant money if it happens.
Yeah, I received your email, and Jason Green and members of our planning staff are looking into that.
Jason's here right now, Bill, if you want to talk to him.
It's more of just informational at this point, but we can wait and have him look into it more and distribute it, unless you have some insight right away, Jason.
No, some of those grants, the timeline might not work because of how, like you said, the years that it can take to get into the cycle, but we're researching some other options and working with the FEMA partners that are here to some more information to the public.
Okay. Another thing I get a lot of questions about is the new versus the old flood maps. And I think a lot of people want to know specifically, has my house changed? Has the flood elevation of my house or the category of my house changed? Is there a way we can put a resource up for people where they can compare the old and the new maps easily and see the personal effect that has?
Well, the answer is, I'll let Jason answer this, but basically the new maps are going to be in effect or are in effect. But here,
so right now we have panels that we are going to put up. I think they're on the website. I'll make sure they're. And we've asked for digital versions type in your address and it'll go to that site. Those are not available for some reason for our community right now, but we've been asking for a couple weeks to see if we can get those. Unfortunately, it's probably about 2 weeks before we'll get those. But at least by the date of November 17th, we'll have those as a digital link to a website to search your product. Before that, we can just try to help you identify what the difference.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, now I've also heard something, this is again, maybe, I don't know if this is Jason or Roger, some kind of scary ramifications if you essentially cheat the 50% rule. I've heard of everything from, you can have your house condemned to FEMA will never issue flood insurance to that house again until it's raised up to flood level. Is that true?
Yes.
Well, I think I'll let Jason provide you detail, but the bottom line is FEMA does not want repetitive losses. So their regulations are driven around trying to prevent preventative losses. I'll let Jason fill in the detail.
Yeah, that's true. So there's two parts to that. If there's found to be violation, it's the town's responsibility to go back to those property owners and try to get them to elevate and be in compliance. And if they refuse, then there's a process that happens as far as kind of labeling that structure so they don't get flood insurance. They won't issue to that structure until it's brought into compliance. If the town is found guilty of not implementing our rules and the NFIP rules, we can be suspended, penalized, and that is one of the faults to that, or one of the outcomes of that. If you're suspended, then mortgages can't be issued because they need flood insurance for mortgage. They're required. And also, one of the things that I learned today is if that's happened to you, this whole process can be withheld. So if this were to happen again, and that's something that we have had happen to us, let's say we violation, suspended at any point, all of.
Yeah, sorry, you sounded very important, but you cut out there, Jason.
What's that?
Yeah, you cut out there for a while, Jason.
This whole process, this recovery process, and all the staging, all that assistance that we're getting now, that could be withheld if a storm event were to occur again, if we were suspended, if we were in violation of implementing the regulations. So,
okay.
Not people, but the bad side of it, of not doing it, is very bad.
So then there's two sides of that, right? One is our regulations have to satisfy the FEMA requirements, and the other is, and there's some flexibility there, I understand. The other is we have to be enforcing them.
We have to enforce our regulations and the minimum standards from FEMA regulations.
Okay, and do you know this whole talk about adding another 20 to 30%? Is there any kind of documentation in FEMA what's permissible?
The conversation today was be very careful about the percentage you add.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, this is bigger than just losing our discount on flood insurance policies. You could lose your policy, period.
Your kids recovery.
So if you're becoming an eligible area for flood insurance, that means that no one can get a mortgage through a bank.
Right.
Not to mention we go.
So, I think there's a balance between trying to accommodate the folks who would like to rebuild, the builders who specialize in rebuilding versus new houses versus, what's good long term for the community. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important to know there's two sides of that coin. That we have to be careful, but we want to help people as much as we can, but we don't want to sink the ship in the process. Okay, and I think the last thing I have is the builders open house with the Lee County Building Industry Association is 2 days from now, on the 3rd of November, 5 to 7. It's at 6750 Panther Lane, which is I think Cypress High School, in their media room. I've heard over 20 builders have signed up. I have no idea how many people are planning on coming. And I've also encouraged the organizers to come with a contact sheet so those who can't make it will at least have a list of potential contractors to call.
I want to thank you for facilitating that, Bill. That's a great service for everybody. So thank you. Vice Mayor.
You already came to me, Ray.
I was gonna come back to you again. You know, you're not gonna have too many more opportunities.
I have nothing further at this point. Everyone has really been covering everything very well.
Okay. And my items have all been covered too, everything that I wanted to speak about, plus at the beginning. So I just want to let you know that the council, if you haven't been down here for a while, your staff is working very hard here. They're very diligent. They're getting the work done. The building department, as was stated earlier, is caught up on the permits. FPL is cranking out the permits for electricity. You know, the water's back up, the sewer's back up. We have the county to thank for that. And so things are really clicking. If you haven't driven around for a while, a lot of the debris has been removed. And of course, more and more is coming back out to the boulevard. But the foot of the bridge looks a lot different these days. You know, a lot of that crap has been removed, and it's looking a lot better. So then if you didn't see my Facebook thing yesterday, we said goodbye to the guys and ladies from Fire Department of New York. They've left us now as our incident commanders. These are the teams that facilitate a lot of the work down here and also track a lot of the expenses and what have you. And so they've left. They succeeded the team from Louisiana, then came New York, and now Northeast Florida is here. The team from up there, and they've assumed the job under us, under our direction. The Unified Command has been shaved down now. Our fire department has branched off now. They're back to their own situation. So they're commanding their own, and we're commanding our own now. So with the assistance of these people from the Northeast Florida. So that's kind of what's going on down here in a nutshell. As Roger stated earlier, the Community Resource Center, the third one, is going to be opening up shortly, hopefully within the next few days, up on or hopefully sometime this week or soon, up in Times Square for the north end of the island. And hopefully the food vendors are getting together and getting their plans worked out so we can expedite that. And things are really moving along. I mean, the citizens are down here. They're getting all their work. A lot of them are getting their work done. And so I'm very encouraged, as we all should be, that things are moving along. And I want you to start thinking, if you haven't been already, and I'm sure you have been, about the future. I mean, this cleanup is only going to last for so long, but I want to start thinking about how this is all going to start looking in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, and the opportunities that are going to present themselves here to us. I stated on one of these things, I don't know if it was on Facebook or one of these, or an interview or something, that I want to bring in professional planners, designers that can help us facilitate the rebuilding of Fort Myers Beach, Estero Island. Having them come in here and getting the whole community involved, having these charrettes, where everybody comes in and puts their ideas down, and we start whittling down. So we have consensus from the whole community, not just the five of us, but the whole town. So that's kind of my hope. That's kind of my vision for things to come here, and I hope that you all that we can come to agreement on that, and really start looking beyond this drudgery right now towards a much brighter future. The new and improved and rebuilt Fort Myers Beach. So I'll leave everybody with that, and we'll move on to final public comment. If we can do that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
did you wish to extend the local emergency resolution for another week as council? Did we lose you?
You froze it, Amy.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can. Yes, I
Okay.
can.
I'll move to extend the emergency resolution.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, Madam Clerk, if there's anybody waiting in the wings for public comment, if you want to.
Yes, we have some in there. Let them in for you.
Okay. Just remind everybody that we're still going with the 3-minute rule, and if you can follow that, that'd be great.
Okay, they should be coming in soon. And if somebody wishes to make public comment, if they know how to raise their hand via Zoom, we'll let them in afterwards, or physically wave your hand at us and we will find you in the plethora of little boxes we're looking at. Okay, all right.
Go ahead, Chris.
Chris, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Chris Primo here with 1035 Estero, which was the sandal factory in Loyola. Also, we also owned the properties where Yotako and Root Shrimp were located, and also where the FPNL is camped
Yes.
at our parking lot. So
Yes.
when the the initial word came out about food trucks, we had all 3 of my restaurateurs have procured food trucks and are ready to go back online. We're trying to secure power and water, but they are self-contained. One of the things that I want to mention is the property lends itself to a safe environment. Logistically, it'll be away from construction, and they're also equipped with sanitation for proper food handling techniques, which is very important. We'll be able to get grease removal and garbage removal and sanitation. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that I know there's some people already moving in that direction, but I want to make sure that we have the ability to.
Hey, Chris,
Yes.
do me a favor and call the manager at your convenience, okay? Then we'll facilitate that.
Thank you. I want to get these guys back to work. Very important. And I get a lot of phone calls every day brainstorming. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everyone's efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Next.
We don't see anyone raising their hand, or if anyone wants to turn their video on and shake their hands at us, we'll find you. Let us look through all the little boxes real quick. We are not seeing anybody anymore.
All right, well, we'll say going once, going twice. And again, I will repeat that if anyone was not able to comment for one reason or another, you're certainly welcome to submit your comments or questions to the town's website, and you'll be on the record at a minimum, and maybe possibly get your questions answered. Okay, so you're still waiting, Madam Clerk, or are you done?
We see nobody else trying to get our attention out there.
All right, we'll move on to the next item. That's the town manager's items. Town manager?
Well, I think I've covered everything I need to cover through the questions I've been asked by the members of council. So the only thing I will add is that I hope you will continue to be forward-looking and understand that whatever we do for things like a town hall, whatever, while we're working on our short-term plan, we also need to be working on our long-term plan. So, thank you.
Okay, town attorney's items, town attorney. Town attorney.
He's muted.
Nothing, Mayor, members of the
Okay.
commission, council.
That's a first for a lawyer. He's speechless. Thank you, John. We'll move on to councilman items. I think we pretty well covered these at the beginning, but I'll give you all one last crack if you like. Vice Mayor?
I guess at this point, I just like to really praise our staff. I follow many of them on Facebook. So even if I'm not around, I am aware of the extreme efforts that they're putting in, working long hours under adverse conditions. I can't be more proud of our town staff. And that's all I have to say.
Very good. Councilman Adderholt?
You all were kind enough to answer all my questions during the regular program, so I have nothing additional. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Allers?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Two quick things. John, there's a question about properties that are no longer there that had liens on them from the town. How does that all work out now that the buildings are actually gone? Is it still on the property? Are they still in place? Do they go away? It's in the general broad spectrum, I guess.
That question was directed at the town attorney.
Yeah, there you go.
The absent action by the town council, those liens still exist.
Okay, thank you. Then the last thing, on a positive note, I had a message today or I got a call today from a resident or part-time resident from up north that one of their benches that they purchased for their family was found. They'd like to see it get back to the beach and placed. They have a place in Mariners Village over there. They had bought this bench for their late mother, father, and sister. So if there's a spot, I know debris is kind of a thing, a little bit of normalcy would be kind of cool if we could find a place close to Bayside Park to they want to see that get back to the beach where they spent most of their time and loved being. So if it's okay with council, I'd like to work with staff to try to find a spot for them to be able to place that bench to provide some hope that we're coming back.
Sounds good
Of course,
to
Dan.
me. Sounds good.
Very good.
All
That's all I
right.
have.
Thank you. Councilman Veach?
Yeah, I just want to, I tell you, one of the things about looking forward is I really want to thank the people who provided food when there were no facilities on the island and the way they did it and the food was decent. But I'm personally really looking forward to, our great local restaurants getting in there displaying food because it's a lot better than what we've been getting. And I look forward to our great restaurants getting back on the island and feeding people like me.
Amen. Amen to that.
But I'll tell
Okay,
you, every time I've come onto the island, you've been there. So you've been living on some weird sandwiches for a while now.
And yet, I haven't lost any weight. Go figure. But anyhow, maybe just the stress is taking a few pounds off. But okay, well, I don't have anything else to add to that. So if there's nothing else to add for the good of the order, it was a very good meeting. I thank you all very much. And if there's a motion to adjourn, we'll do just that.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objection? The motion carries unanimously. We're adjourned at 3:44. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody.